Welcome back. All right, so I had the idea of doing a truly awful season video. I haven't done one of those in a little bit. I was going to talk about the Colorado Rockies, the 79-80 season. Don Cherry was the coach for that year, but really, it's hard to basically look at a season and go, well, this one was really bad when you're looking at the Colorado Rockies. So I've done a video on the year that they ended up moving to New Jersey and how everything in Denver just fell apart. Now, of course, in 1995, we end up with the team going to Denver. They did pretty well. They've won 3 Stanley Cups thus far, and we never hear anything about them moving because that franchise is solid as a rock, but the Rockies were not, ironically. So the team moved from Kansas City in 1976. The Kansas City Scouts were a disaster on the ice and off of it. The Colorado Rockies, a disaster on the ice and off of it, but it was a disaster that lasted 3 times longer. So they would end up moving to New Jersey in 1982, but in between, things are fun. So it starts in 76-77. The team had a 20-46-14 record. 20 wins is not great, but considering the years they'd had in Kansas City, I think they had 15 wins and 12 wins. 20 wins is an improvement under coach Johnny Wilson. Now, he doesn't last, but no coach does in the Colorado Rockies organization. So 77-78, under Pat Kelly, the team finishes 19-40-21. So this is before overtime, of course, and you have ties, 21 ties. 78-79, a record of 15-53-12. Pat Kelly doesn't last very long. He's 3-14-4. He goes. Aldo Gudolin comes in and ends up 12-39-8. That's a terrible record, but it's still better than the record that under Pat Kelly. And then the following season, trying to get things turned around in 79-80, Don Cherry takes over. It's a bit of a year. 19-48-13 is the record. And we'll go through that and all the other seasons as well, because Don Cherry had every reason to, by the end of the year, say, well, I'm done here. 80-81, 22-45-13 was the team's record under Billy McMillan. So that is their best record of their 6 seasons. 22-45-13 was the best year, right? 81-82, they go 18-49-13. Their coach to start the season's Bert Marshall. He ends up 3-17-4. They let him go. Marshall Johnston takes over, and he ends up 15-32-9. So again, the replacement coach with a really bad record, but still better than the guy he took over for. And that would be the last season that they're in Colorado as the Rockies, and it was bad. The attendance wasn't awful. The attendance wasn't bad considering how absolutely miserably bad the team on the ice was. Like, I can't overstate this. And I remember as a kid, I liked the name Colorado Rockies. I thought it was a fun name. And so I was a fan of the Colorado Rockies based on the name. And I thought the jerseys and the logo were kind of fun too. The fact that it's a play on the Colorado state flag, I think is great. I really do. I think it's great. And I love when the Colorado Avalanche throw that baby on the front of a jersey, whether it's the stadium jersey or their current third. Having the C on the front's a lot of fun. Now, really what it comes down to is this team didn't usually start the season well, and end of season, it was bad. So 76-77, they were 3-6-1 out of the gate. And over their final 20 games, they won 1. So, at the end of the season, when a team that's not playing very well goes on a bit of a rally, and you go, hey, if they can keep this up next season, who knows? Yeah, the Rockies weren't that team. The second year, they were close, though. 77-78, they started 4-3-3, and they won 6 of their final 11. So that's 4 wins in their first 10, 6 wins in their last 11. So that's 10 wins out of those 21 games. The other 59 games, they won 9. So it's that in-between where they really had their struggle, and they earned that miserable record. 78-79, they started the season 2-7-1. So you're not going to get your attendance up starting 2-7-1. And then they won 3 out of their final 20 games that year. Again, you're not generating any excitement for the following season. 79-80, under Don Cherry, 1-7-2 to start the season, and he wasn't happy right away. They won 3 of their final 20 games as well. So, not great. 80-81, they actually started better, 4-4-2. They finished with 5 wins in their final 20 games. So, again, that's not great. That's not a fantastic record. 4-4-2 is good out of the gate, but they couldn't maintain it. And again, good for them, right? Like the 4-3-3 record, that's good for them. 81-82, their final year in Denver, they started 1-7-2, and they win 5 of their last 20 games. So that's a problem. They don't finish seasons well outside of once. 1 win, 3 wins, 3 wins, 5 wins, 5 wins. This is an issue. But again, they were just bad all year, right? So they were just bad. There wasn't really a point where you can look and go, well, clearly, looks like their longest winning streak was like maybe 3, maybe 4 games. And when you look at the amount of wins they had altogether, it adds up. So their all-time leader in points is Wolf Paymont. 257 games wearing the Colorado Rockies jersey, 106 goals, 148 assists, 254 points. A good player for a bad team. Paul Gardner at 170 games played, 83 goals, 77 assists, 160 points. I agree, I should do a Wolf Paymont video, shouldn't I? Lanny McDonald played 142 games here, and we will talk about McDonald again. 66 goals, 75 assists, 141 points. Gary Croteau played 234 games with the Rockies, 65 goals, 71 assists for 136 points. And Merlin Malinowski, great name. I always loved the name Merlin Malinowski. I used to love getting his hockey cards. He only played 202 games with the Rockies, 46 goals, 86 assists, 132 points. It's a great name to say, Merlin Malinowski. Just the fact the guy's name was Merlin, I was like, Merlin? Yeah, that's one of my favorite players right there. So even as a kid, yep, same thing. The most wins in a season by a goaltender was Chico Resch, who had 16 in 81-82. I can only assume the Islanders hated him to send him to Colorado because that was just mean. And then he went to New Jersey, and he was the backstop of some really bad teams in New Jersey as well. It says a lot about Chico Resch's character that I never once remembered him complaining about the defense in front of him, which was bad through most of his time, both here in Denver and then in New Jersey after that as well. Don't remember ever hearing him complain. So how are they at trading? Not great. So September 13th of 1976, they traded their 1980 first-round draft pick. That's a little ways out, isn't it? For Ron Adriff, as well as Sean Shanahan, and a 1980 first-round pick that they used for Paul Gagne at 19th overall. That number 1 first-round pick in 1980 became Doug Wickenheiser, but it could have been Denny Savard. If Denny Savard had been drafted by the Rockies, who knows? July 2nd of 1979, they traded Bill Lougheed for the rights to Hardy Astrom. Hardy Astrom then became the goaltender that they wanted to have as the starter. Don Cherry has been on the record many times over about Hardy Astrom and how bad he was in the net. I cannot make an argument that he was good. I can't. As somebody who watched hockey then, I had Hardy Astrom hockey card, but I cannot make the argument he was really good for the Colorado Rockies, and goaltending was definitely a problem. November 2nd of 1979, they traded Barry Beck, who had been an excellent defenseman for them, set rookie records, and so he's making everybody look bad, so you got to trade him. He's traded to the Rangers for basically everybody. Lucien Deblois, Pat Hickey, Mike McEwen, Dean Turner, and a player to be named later, who became Bob Crawford. So they get quantity, but the quality's going the other way. Barry Beck had an excellent career with the New York Rangers, was probably quite happy to exit a Colorado team that, sure, he was putting up points for them and playing well, but going to the Rangers must have felt good. December 29th of 1979, they then trade Pat Hickey, so he doesn't last that long there, as well as Wolf Paymont, in exchange for Lanny McDonald and Joel Quenneville. Lanny McDonald, sent to purgatory in Colorado by the Toronto Maple Leafs, who really kind of wanted to get rid of Darryl Sittler because he was having his issues with management, but Sittler wouldn't waive a no-trade, so they traded his buddy Lanny McDonald instead, and what better place to trade him than the Colorado Rockies, who were a complete and total unmitigated disaster. So again, full credit to Lanny McDonald. I don't remember him complaining about going there or complaining when he left. I don't see why he'd complain when he left. March 10th of 1981, they traded Yari Carella as well as Mike McEwen to the New York Islanders for Chico Resch and Steve Tambellini. So Chico Resch had been the backup goaltender for the New York Islanders. They had Rolly Melanson coming up, so Resch could go. And picking up Mike McEwen, he was a solid defenseman for the Islanders during their dynasty. So it was a good move by the New York Islanders. And again, Resch gave them the best goaltending that I think anybody did. And this was after Don Cherry had basically pleaded for this kind of a move that didn't happen. November 25th of 1981, they traded Lanny McDonald to Calgary, as well as a 1983 fourth-round pick, which became Mikko Makala, in exchange for Don Lever and Joe Micheletti. So I did a video recently on a player who got traded a lot in Brent Ashton. Don Lever seemed to get traded a lot as well. Joe Micheletti, you may know the name. June 9th of 1982, they traded Rob Ramage, who was another young player for them, in exchange for a 1982 first-round pick and a 1983 first-round pick, which New Jersey would use to draft John McClain. So that actually ended up being a good trade later. Wasn't a great trade at the time, but considering it's June 9th of 1982, that is after Denver, Colorado had already seen their last NHL game until 1995. So at the draft table, not great results. And if they got good results, they would trade that good result. 1977, their first draft pick is Barry Beckett, number 2. He would end up being traded in 79. 1978, they drafted Mike Gillis at number 5. They would trade him away as well. 1979, Rob Ramage is the number 1 overall draft pick, and he's traded in 1982 when the teams moved to New Jersey. 1980, they draft Paul Gagne at number 19. They're drafting 19th because they got Montreal's draft pick. Montreal getting their draft pick drafts Doug Wickenheiser because they didn't want to draft Savard. 1980 also saw them draft Aaron Broughton, 106th overall. He would play for the New Jersey Devils for a while there. 1981, they draft Joe Cirella, 5th overall. And then Bruce Driver was drafted 108th overall, and he would play a long time with the New Jersey Devils. Never played a game for the Colorado Rockies. So the drafting was iffy, and by the time you get to the 1982 draft, it was the New Jersey Devils. So there's only 5 drafts that have Colorado Rockies credentials on them. But ownership changed twice in 4 years, and ownership was a problem. They didn't have anybody with the deep enough pockets, and companies go through rough patches, and you got to sell off your team, right? The GM refused to replace Hardy Astrom. And the arguments between Don Cherry and upper management led to a real fracture there, and Cherry being like, yeah, I'm not coming back. Because management would take management's side. And Cherry was kind of seen as being a bit of an issue, which is part of the reason why Don Cherry liked Ted Nolan as a coach, because Ted Nolan as a coach was willing to challenge members of upper management as well, and willing to complain about things openly. He felt that his duty was to make sure the team was the best on the ice it could be. And in this case, he wasn't getting the right players. Hardy Astrom was not a good goaltender, so he was being asked to make the best of a bad situation. But when you get 19 wins in 80 games, and remember, Don Cherry had been the coach of the Bruins before this. The Bruins were a winning organization. I would say listening to Don would have been a good thing for the Colorado Rockies to do at the time, but nope. Then Don Cherry as well, for what was his final game, knowing he wasn't coming back, he wore a cowboy hat and cowboy boots for his final game behind the bench. So you got to appreciate that from a Colorado perspective there. John Ziegler came out and vowed, after ownership had changed hands in 1981, that the NHL was going to do everything it could to make sure that hockey stayed in Denver and that the franchise would not be in any danger of moving. And they'd move a year later. So this idea that the NHL coming out and saying, well, if this team can't move, they won't move. Yeah, they say that until it does. And this was a case of that. John Ziegler, who was in charge of the league at the time, said, yeah, we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. It's going to work. And a year later, yeah, this doesn't work. We're going to go to that new Meadowlands they've built in New Jersey, which again didn't look like that was going to work either. Another sign of the turmoil with this team and with its roster, they had 7 captains in 6 seasons. You got 7 captains. Let's count the coaches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By my count, 6 coaches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 coaches. So there, I recounted 7 coaches. It's an issue, right? GM would change frequently as well. And when you don't have any kind of continuity in your general manager, your coach, your ownership, what chance does a franchise actually have to succeed? In Colorado's case, they had none. But again, it was made up to them by the Colorado Avalanche coming into existence via the movement of the Quebec Nordiques to Colorado. And Denver's been a really good market for hockey since then. Excellent market. Would have been a good market back then if they'd had a team that seemed like it had some kind of plan. Trading out first-round draft picks when your team is bad, not a great idea. Trading out young players who had been top draft picks for your team who were playing well in the NHL, probably not a good idea either. And a lot of things conspired to just make this team flat out bad. Just bad lineup decisions. And again, I felt bad for Lanny McDonald being exiled there when he was. But once he got to Calgary, things got a lot better. And, credit to him for scoring almost a point per game on a Colorado team that did not have a lot of point per game players over their 6-year existence. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.